Buddy,
Good morning.
good morning. Kyle, the drama. The drama. I thought I thought my days of tire drama were behind me. They are not.
No, you didn't.
Oh
You never
no.
thought that. You never
They,
thought that.
they're back with a vengeance. Back stronger.
Clayton, I was so happy that you finally went back to Bontrager tires. So I'm disappointed to hear that you have woes again.
Yeah, me too. I was excited. And I thought the issue I was having was temporary, you know. We'll get into it, but apparently it's maybe a feature, not a bug. So should we go straight into the woes and then get into the comparisons, at least to the Vittorias and some other tires I've had?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be careful. Bontrager makes a fantastic product. I've been on Bontrager tires for years, many years. I've been on their Enduro casing tires now for 2 years and couldn't be happier, period. I mean, anywhere I've ever ridden with them, fantastic tires.
Well, it's not all bad. I have good things to say, but,
Okay.
I am frustrated. So,
understandably. Okay.
All right, listeners, here was my plan for this podcast, was to do a comparison review of Vittoria Mazdas, both in trail and enduro casing, Vittoria Martello that I had ran in a trail casing for a while, and then also with my new Maxxis Assegai, or Assegai, however you're supposed to say it, as a front tire. And then I bought a Bontrager G5 tire for the rear, which it's a G5 team issued 29-inch by 2.5. It's only been in that size for, gosh, I mean, it hasn't been very long that 29er downhill bikes have really been on the scene.
Probably
So
3 years. Sure. Probably 3 years now, I would think. I'd have to look and see when that SKU became available. I would think that tire has been at least in production for 3 years, maybe 4.
Right. So bought the G5, and my plan was to run these in the Big Mountain Enduro, which you already know didn't happen because I got the Rona and was out.
The ick.
But I have put a couple rides on them. However, the G5 in my basement, I put it on, I put sealant in it, I rode it around outside, and putting it on was kind of a drama because it has a wire bead, which should have been a red flag, but it wasn't to me because Michelin, their new DH34, their new DH22, they're also wire bead tires, but they are tubeless tires. Anyway, I noticed, kind of overnight, the tire would deflate. And I really wasn't that worried about it because sometimes the sidewalls are porous, or maybe the sealant, I've got a Vittoria airliner in there. I thought maybe that, those things will stretch a little bit, and like maybe the sealant's just not getting everywhere quite yet. So a couple rides on it, it's a slow leak. I can't hear it. I can't see it. I can't feel it. The sealant will spread around and it'll seal everything up, and it'll be fine. I had a Continental tire back in 2016 or 17 that was similar. It had pretty porous sidewalls, but once the sealant spread around, it was fine. Well, I went. I've been down to Shepherd twice on these tires, and I'll give you a ride review. But man, I kept noticing it's not sealing up. It's leaking slower than it was for sure. But Tuesday evening, I went down after work, and I could literally see sealant bubbles coming through the sidewalls in different spots.
Like visible tire sealant weeping.
Yeah. Yep. Visible little bubbles coming through just randomly around the sidewall. I'm like, gee whiz. Okay, well, at least the sealant's getting to the right spot now, right? And I did actually check on it last night. It had been sitting for a day, and it did not go completely flat like it had before, but it was still pretty stinking low. Now, getting ready for this podcast, I wanted to talk about specifically the difference in rubber compound and the difference that makes. and I was pretty sure that both the Maxxis and the Bontrager, that their top layer of rubber on the knobs is the 42A, which that's the durometer. I'm not a durometer expert, but I know in the mountain bike world, that's like basically the softest, slowest rebounding, tackiest, stickiest rubber. So I went to Bontrager's website to just make sure that I was right, that it's also 42A rubber. And like, I mean, honestly, you push on it with your thumb and you can pretty well tell. These tires are gummy, which is good in a lot of ways. Well, I'm scrolling down through the G5 team issue page, get all the way to the bottom to the FAQs. And I'm like, I wonder if anybody else has had issues with the sidewall being porous or whatever. So I'm looking, at the 3 questions, and the very last question is, this tire tubeless ready? And a verified Trek employee wrote, quote, the G5 team issue MTB tire is not tubeless ready. If you're looking for a burly tubeless ready tire, check out the SE5 team issue TLR. And I was just like, no wonder it's not a tubeless ready tire. And basically, I'm asking the sealant to do a lot of extra work to keep this sucker going. So I was a little perturbed, shall we say, because here's what bothered me. That is a modern mountain bike tire, right? That is a tire that came out well past the tubeless revolution. And the now normal standard for mountain bike tires of any brand, the assumption is they're tubeless ready.
Right.
Like that's the rule, not the exception.
Which is especially weird too for the Bontrager tire, because Bontrager team issue classically has always meant folding bead tubeless ready. That was Bontrager's had 3 tiers of tires forever, and they've had the comp. What was it? The comp, the elite, and then the team issue or comp. Anyway, their tubeless their team issue tire has always been folding bead tubeless ready on all throughout their entire lineup.
Right. And exactly. And moreover, they advertise greatly that their downhill team, uses this tire, that their enduro team uses this tire as a rear tire very often, and sometimes a front tire, right? They're not running tubes.
No, there's no way.
I start thinking, okay, is it basically, does the sealant, eventually take care of it, or it leaks so slowly that it's not an issue? But the other thing that has me tripping is that wire bead, it's not going to conform quite as easily to any imperfections in the rim. And that's what's got me like, is this tire, would I be fine if I just keep running it? It's not losing that much in a day. But I'm like, does the team actually use a version of this tire that's actually different than what Trek is selling? And I don't know the answer to that. But it's just hard for me to believe that their professional team that they spend millions of dollars on are running tires that are not tubeless ready, that they're relying on those to go out and race EWS and World Cup downhill. That makes sense?
No, there's no way. There's no way they're running tubes in elite level, pro level, elite downhill.
Right. But it makes me wonder, okay, are they running the same tire without tubes and they're just like, yeah, the sealant takes care of it, it's not a big deal? Or are they, do they have some spec tire that's got the same compound, same tread pattern looks the same, probably rides the same, but is actually only available to them. Kind of like in motocross, the pros run tires that look to the naked eye like what you buy off the shelf, same tread patterns, but they're spec tires. Like they're not available to the mass. And I wonder, is that the sort of thing that's going on? So I went to the source of all mountain bike wisdom, which would be the Pink Bike forums. And I posted a new thread in the Trek forum. And then I also posted the exact same thing in the Slash forum asking, does anybody use the G5s? Did you know they're not tubeless ready? Has anybody had experience with this? What's going on? Et cetera, et cetera. And no replies. Not from
Nothing yet.
And there's a guy on there that's like a Trek. He's like the Trek forum guy.
Mitch at Trek.
Yep. Haven't heard anything. So what I did was I called the shop. I talked with our guy at Momentum that's great with warranty, and Trek does have an unconditional 30-day guarantee for satisfaction, which I am not. And he assured me they would absolutely take care of it. Trek would honor it. And he even said, and if they, for some reason, don't, we're going to the shop, because they didn't know either. I mean, nobody knew this. Like, I have no issue believing that nobody knew this, because why would you ever think of it?
Right.
So,
remind me what the price point was in the tire. They're cheap, right? Like affordable.
It's a $70 tire retail. I mean,
was it?
Okay. I wouldn't say it's exceptionally cheap. Honestly, yeah, I wouldn't say that's exceptional. It's less than a Schwalbe or even a full blown new Maxxis retails for more, but it's still it's still $70 tire. It might be it's $69.99.
Okay, I'm thinking that was a $50.
So they're going to take care of me, And here's why it's a bummer. Because now let's get into the ride quality. What I've ridden on it, I'm just, I actually have no issues with the ride quality of the tire. It's actually fantastic. So getting into sort of the meat of this podcast, well, before we do, Kyle, let me ask you a question. Do you know what I do for a living?
Which thing? You do quite a few things for a living.
The main one.
Yeah, financial investments and planning. That's
right. It's time for the surprise ad read. You never know when it's coming. Let me ask you this, Kyle. Do you know what my professional... Well, you just said it. I'm a financial advisor. But do you know what my professional dream is to be the financial advisor to the Missouri mountain biking world? And what I really keep thinking of is I would love for us to be able to do business when we want to go talk business. Instead of going to a golf course, we go to the trail. That's the dream, right? And I tell you what, if we ever make that dream happen, what's that?
The Shepherd Mountain Advisor.
Yeah, sure. That would be fine. And if we get enough people that are like, yeah, well, I do need to make sure my financial house is in order and have a plan, I'll stop doing these ad reads. But until that time, have you thought about how you'll be able to afford mountain biking well into the future? Let me help you make a financial plan as your Belgrade Financial Services financial advisor. Email me at ksylvia@moneyconcepts.com or give me a call, 573-327-7003. We'll ride, we'll talk, we'll see if it makes sense to work together. We'll make the bike park the new golf course. Belgrade Financial Services is an independent firm not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corporation. All securities through Money Concepts Capital Corporation, member FINRA, SIPC. All right. The ride quality. Now, I've been high on Vittoria tires. And I still am. So I want to do a comparison of what it's like riding the Vittoria Mazdas, the Martello, versus the Assegai and the G5, which, like I said, how the G5 rides and feels, I'm totally happy with. But I'm just not sure if I trust that wire bead that's not intended to be a tubeless tire. Might be fine. I was really hoping some Trek employee would hit me up on the forum and say, yeah, it's no big deal. You know, the sealant will take care of it, and we haven't had any problems. But that hasn't happened yet. So I've got it's very hard to find tires. So I actually found one with Billy Russell from the Labos boys. He's going to send a dissector my way this Saturday. So had to do a lot of searching around to find a tire, just because the supply chain is wet right now.
Wow. Did we not have anything at our shop for you?
Not in downhill casing.
Don't you have a tire sitting on the shelf right now?
And I told them to take it down weeks ago, and they sold it like immediately.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the tires. So, which tire do you think I should talk about first? What do you want to know, Kyle? What's the burning tire question you want to know?
So, end of the day, all other things aside, what has been your favorite feeling tire at Shepherd? Fastest, most comfortable, best carry speed with, etc. What you've had more tires and more honest, active thought processes moving around tires than any other human being on this planet, I think, that's not a professional rider. What's been your favorite tire under the saddle feel?
Well, okay. I think we need to categorize them. That's a good way to ask it. So the fastest feeling when it was bone dry last summer and fall, very different than what we saw in the race, right? Bone dry, dusty, no water anywhere. As far as roll speed goes and feeling pretty good, that Martello rear Mazda front combo was fast. It rolls really fast. However, here's what I think makes more of a difference than anything is the rubber compound that's used for the tread. Because the conventional wisdom is that tire casing, like a downhill tire, has thicker casing. The conventional wisdom is you can run less air pressure and get a better ride feel, which is true. But here's the interesting thing that I have found running these actual downhill tires with this super soft rubber. I can actually run more pressure and it still feel softer, like it has less pressure. Because the first thing to interact with the ground are those knobbies. Yeah. Those soft knobbies just absorb chatter. It's slow rebounding, and it feels like you just got your suspension tuned up. It's less of a harsh ride into your hands. Now, directly comparing the Vittoria tires I use to these, they had a lighter casing, even the Enduro casing on the Vittorias. It's a dual layer 120 TPI. Here's what I think the Vittorias do really well. For the amount of grip they generate, they roll very fast. Another thing Vittoria does very well is they last a long time. That graphene in the compound, it definitely lasts. And I think their cornering, their side knobs are very good. They use a little bit stiffer of a rubber, I think, but they kind of managed to make it feel like a softer rubber on the knobs because they have those progressive sipes. So it does give. And like when I was racing the Chubb Enduro, there was one stage I was absolutely just throwing that bike into the corners, no brakes, and completely relying on the tire to grab on some damp rock and dirt. And it did. And it totally surprised me, and I was very happy with that performance. But at Shepherd, where you start running into the weak spot, The first weak spot is as a rear tire goes at Shepherd Mountain. Vittoria does not make a true downhill casing. Even their enduro casing, I've had enough punctures for Shepherd Mountain. It's not enough if you're charging hard. You're gonna get a puncture or two at some point. There's just no. It's just not going to survive like race pace, pushing the limit, slamming into rocks. Now, I still think they're excellent tires for general riding and trail riding. And if I had a shorter travel bike that I didn't ride at Shepherd, I would almost certainly probably throw like a Martello Mazda combo or an Agaro Mazda combo on that bike. You know, they roll fast, they climb, they still have, they brake very well. But what I was looking for, especially after watching the DME, was, okay, there's one thing at Shepherd to me that trumps all other things, and that is, what are you going to do on a super slick, steep rock slab that's wet or covered in mud? And, you know, a lot of tires use a firmer compound on the center tread, and then they use the 42A on the knobbies. But the problem with that is, coming down these rock slabs, you're on the center tread. And so I was like, okay, my priority is, one, I want a downhill casing that's going to survive or have the best chance of surviving without flatting. And two, I want the maximum braking traction on wet rock that I can possibly get. And to be honest with you, I think that mainly has to do with what rubber compound's being used more than the tread design. And the Vittoria center tread, it definitely is firmer than this G5 and the Assegai tire I'm using. So when I got down there finally on these tires and started rolling down through the jumps and stuff, I mean, I knew I had more pressure in these tires than I ever ran, even in the Vittoria trail casing tire for the front. I would only run like 21 PSI in that thing. I think I had 23 in the Assegai up front, and I had about 27 or 28 in the G5 in the rear. And I would have sworn that I was running maybe 20 in the front and maybe 25 in the rear, because the rubber compound is just so much more compliant. It felt like the tires were low to me because it was just absorbing all the little chatter and vibration. And I immediately noticed, I was hitting the jumps at the bottom. I used to feel that rear tire squirm a little bit. And these, no squirm, just solid. Never felt like it was going to come off the rim or anything like that. So,
oh, good.
Now climbing, whoo, climbing is a different story.
What is it? So what is the G5? Is it a 1,500 gram tire?
I think it's listed as its list weight is 1,440. I think
it's a porky pig.
is right there. Plus that soft gummy rubber doesn't. Climbing. I honestly, like, going down the hill through the jumps, I did not feel like I was missing any speed when I'd land the jumps and accelerate.
Sorry about the delay and the interruption in continuity on this podcast, but Kyle lost connection to the app we're using to record on a phone call, so it's just me now. I'm going to finish up quickly. I was talking about the ride quality of the G5, and as far as the ride quality goes, it's excellent. Excellent grip on wet rock, excellent absorption. Can actually run more pressure, like I said, and it feels softer. I've lost my train of thought a little bit here because in the time between losing connection with Kyle and me picking this back up, I actually got a reply from an official Trek employee on, and yeah, he confirmed the G4 and the G5 are not tubeless tires, and they the way it was phrased is we don't advertise them as tubeless ready. Well, but they don't advertise them as you need a tube, which in 2021, the assumption for any new mountain bike tire is they're tubeless ready. So a little aggravated there, but to be honest with you, the performance is good enough that whenever they get the G6 to come out, which I think the G6 is going to be very Assegai-like. I know they're working on it. That has already been confirmed. I'm assuming it will be tubeless ready. There's no way the team is running tubes in their tires. I cannot believe that to be the case. And there's no way they're going to come out with a tire in the future that's not. So I expressed my displeasure, but they're going to refund me, give me my money back, and we'll see what happens in the future. Haven't had a chance to really push the Assegai tire as a front tire. As far as I can tell, it's very sticky, very grippy. Haven't had any problems. It's very comfortable, absorbs all the chatter. So, maybe I'll do a review in the future that's more of a long-term review. I'd like to. And I'd also like to do a review of the Fox Float X2 and how it compares to the RockShox reactive through-shaft shock I had on my bike before. But I don't think that's going to be of interest to nearly as many people because the shock that was on my Slash is literally only a Trek shock, and they've even changed it since then. So appreciate you guys listening to some drama. Hope you were entertained by it. You might not have learned a ton, but just in summary, I ran the Vittorias for a long time. I still think for the average rider, let me put it this way. If Shepherd Mountain did not exist, I would absolutely be running probably a Mazda front and a Martello rear, or even double Mazdas or a Mazda Agaro. I think I'd probably run the Martello rear just for a little more puncture protection. There's just a little bit less daylight between the knobs, and it rolls a little faster. But with Shepherd Mountain, I am sticky downhill tires only. And that's it. I mean, I'll suffer on the climbs. I'll push the bike if I have to because the ride quality coming down, you can push harder if you want to. It's more comfortable either way. Just the ride quality coming down the hill on those downhill tires is superb. So I'm probably going to end up maybe this fall trying out some Kendas. We'll see. But hopefully we'll have a podcast with all three of us on another topic entirely here in the near future. Thanks for listening, guys. And as always, you can check us out on Facebook. You can email us at okayestmtb@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. Have a good one.